My name is Hannah, and welcome to Channel 4's Nightly News Update. Our first story tonight is that newly elected President Joe Biden has barred former President Donald Trump from receiving intelligence briefings. These intelligence briefings are typically given to former presidents as a formality and a way of keeping them up to date with events so that they can offer advice to the new president. President Biden cited Trump's erratic behavior as one of the reasons for stopping the briefings. What value is there in giving him an intelligence briefing? What impact does he have at all other than the fact he might slip up and say something, said President Biden. This is just one of the many ways that President Biden has begun to chip away at Donald Trump's power and influence over Washington since his inauguration. Many members of Congress and the former Deputy Director for National Intelligence echoed President Biden's concern and sentiment, praising his decision. Donald Trump was known as being an outsider to Washington throughout his presidency and has now been even further removed from the Hill.
Good evening, I'm Nietzsche and welcome to Channel 4's Nightly News Update. Our first story tonight concerns President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. President Biden has announced that he has barred Trump from receiving intelligence briefings traditionally given to former presidents. President Biden has been a critic of Trump since the beginning of Trump's run for office in 2016 and has criticized Trump's actions and personality many times. Trump shook up Washington with his 2016 election win, and throughout his presidency has chosen not to follow many of the traditions and customs known to normal presidents. Trump had never publicly conceded the 2020 election and did not attend President Biden's inauguration, to which Biden claimed was, quote, an embarrassment for Trump. Many have gone so far as to call Trump immoral, but fail to understand their own words. Morality is not a matter of good or bad, but is rather tied to our customs and traditions. Trump has gone against traditional political norms since the beginning, yet this rejection of traditional norms does not make Trump good nor bad, just different enough to be labeled immoral. In the press conference on Friday, President Biden seemed to gain satisfaction and pleasure out of his announcement to stop Trump's briefings. It seems as though Biden's constant reversal of Trump's policies and actions has become almost habitual to the new president. Is President Biden truly worried that former President Trump is going to leak sensitive information, or is President Biden simply punishing Trump for the dishonor that President Trump brought to the White House? Who can blame Trump for shunning tradition in his search for power? There's a lot more going on behind the scenes of Biden's decision to bar Trump from receiving intelligence briefings, and tradition is certainly at the heart of it.
Next up is a heartwarming story of a woman who jumped into the Charles River yesterday afternoon to save a drowning dog. The dog, named Duke, had gotten off his leash and unknowingly ran out onto the thin ice, at which point the ice broke and he fell in. The woman, our hero of the night, luckily happened to be walking by on the esplanade just moments after the ice cracked. Without a moment's hesitation, she quickly waded waist deep into the freezing cold river and grabbed Duke by the collar, pulling him back to shore. Duke was safely returned to his family thanks to the selfless passerby. Without her, a family in Boston would not be as happy as they are now to have their dog with them still, safe and sound.
Next up is the story of a woman's vanity, winning over her sense of self-preservation when, against all reason, she chose to jump into the wintry Charles River to fish out a dog who had fallen in. With a head full of a desire for praise and a boost to her own image, she waded waist deep into the river and pulled the dog back to shore. Once on dry land, the award she'd hoped for came to fruition. She was hailed a selfless hero, an angel among us. She's all but assured that more people will certainly scan the murky water of the Charles on their walks, hoping for their moment to save a drowning creature to be seen as a selfless, virtuous, and good person as well.
Now, let's take a look at a local senior in high school who's being punished for sabotaging his fellow classmates' SAT scores and college applications in an attempt to secure Ivy League admissions for himself. The senior, when asked why he did it, angrily replied, "All my classmates are liars and cheaters and they don't deserve to get into the Ivy Leagues." When we pointed out that he did not act so honestly himself, he crossed his arms and replied, "I'm just getting my revenge. These kids might look nice to you, but all they've ever done is talk about me behind my back, cheat off of me in class, and bully me. They don't deserve to get into a good school, and I made sure of that." The student is currently being reviewed under the Greater Boston School Board of Directors for his immoral actions, and they've expected to come to a conclusion about his eligibility to apply for universities and scholarships by the end of this month.
And now, let's take a look at a local senior in high school who's gained an upper hand against his fellow classmates in college admissions decisions. This, of course, is an excellent example of humankind's manifestation of the will to power and to gain the upper hand. Of course, the boy cannot be held responsible for his actions because he's acting on his own innate desire to gain power and has simply no control. The lack of free will in this instance shows that nobody is responsible for their actions or their nature. To judge this student is to be unjust. Frankly, more people should follow suit of this student and act on their own callings to power as well.
Our final story for the night takes place outside a Star Market in Allston, where a group of anti-maskers gathered to show their disapproval of Governor Baker's mandatory mask rule throughout Massachusetts. The crowd of around 30 people all chanted together and showed signs with messages like, "I've never worn a mask before, why should I start now?" and "My face, my choice." When one of the participants was interviewed as to why they were against the mask mandate, they responded by saying that they had never worn a mask in all 52 years of their life, so why should I start wearing a mask now? Well, that concludes our nightly news update. Have a safe and healthy night, Boston.
Our final story for this evening is about a crowd outside of a local Star Market. The crowd of around 30 people all gathered to show their displeasure around the governor's mask mandate. Chanting and waving signs together, none of the group social distanced or wore masks. When asked why they didn't want to wear a mask, they argued that they had never worn one before, so there was no reason to start now. This is a classic example of how humankind falsely clings to tradition and custom for no logical reason. The evolution of humanity has slowed or even stalled with this sort of anti-change sentiment. In conclusion, we need to learn to change our own comprehension about the words we say and the decisions we make. I'll leave you on that note. That concludes our nightly news update. Have a safe and healthy night, Boston.